Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight from Spain. I know it's earlier afternoon for you in New York, Ernie. This is a little conversation where we would like to bring to the attention of my community the part of lawyers in the expat and migration community. So, Ernie is an immigration lawyer, and he will tell us a little bit more about the specific population that he works with, right? And also about some project that I heard very interesting that are related to how to support them from this legal perspective.
Fantastic. Karina, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate having this time to talk a little bit about the work that I do, specifically why it motivates me, the passions for it, and also specifically why I think in terms of navigating with the legal compass, it's very, very important to make sure that we practice with a sense of empathy. Not only for the expat community, but also for the clients that I specifically work with as well, which are migrants and other individuals from all parts of the world. So I'll start off by saying, again, pleasure being here. My name is Ernie Collette. I'm the supervising attorney of the Immigration Law Project at an organization, a nonprofit organization in New York City called Mobilization for Justice. The organization's been around for 60 years, and the Immigration Law Project specifically assists, as I mentioned, migrants from all over the world with issues related to humanitarian and family-based cases. So individuals that for either reasons of their own choosing or through forced reasons were forced to migrate here to the United States and now are seeking opportunities to be able to live and remain in the United States, create a family, participate in the economy, and be a part of the country. And so that varies. It goes from humanitarian forms of relief, which can be asylum, which most people are intimately familiar with, or at the very least have a knowledge of that asylum exists, in Europe and the United States, and all over the world. And then specific categories that deal with intimate partner violence, such as the Violence Against Women's Act, which is a act here in the United States to protect individuals of intimate partner violence or domestic violence. We also work with individuals who are unaccompanied minors. These are children under the age of 21 who may have been abused, abandoned, or neglected by their parents, one or both, and are here in the United States trying to seek an opportunity to stay and get a pathway to citizenship. And then other humanitarian categories as well, which could be individuals of crimes here in the United States that may be participating in the legal process and could be eligible for what's known as a U visa as well. And then we assist individuals who apply for citizenship, for individuals who are either trying to seek adjustments of status, which means they're trying to get their green cards either through family members or through marriage, or individuals who are abroad, they have a family member here in the United States, and they're trying to get their green card through a consulate or embassy through something known as consular processing. That's all the fun legal dry stuff. But really what I'm here to talk to you about is developing a connection that really dives into empathy and really dives into speaking specifically with clients about their particular situations, and specifically more so how we as attorneys or we as caretakers are not only legally responsible for individuals' cases, but I feel we also have a moral component as well to try to do our best to be able to empathize with our clients' situations. Whether they chose to come to the United States voluntarily, either in an expat situation, or chose to go to Europe and travel in different areas, as I know that you are living currently in
In
Barcelona.
Barcelona, yes. And
Uh,
one of the things that is important here precisely is that legally speaking, even for psychologists, is different the way we can assess and we can accompany our clients or our patients. Same happens for lawyers, right?
Absolutely.
Like you have all these different legal restrictions that may play a role in how you may be able to proceed or to support or to get access to certain resources. But what you're bringing in, and you have just explained wonderfully, like the vast kind of people that you can help is huge. It's like it's very different perspective, situations, motivations, urgencies, etc., etc. But what you're bringing precisely is something that doesn't understand of legal restrictions, doesn't understand of the way the person may perceive the urgency of the case. You're talking about something that can happen in the professional, helping those people, no matter what legal procedures you're pursuing, no matter what case you're in kind of supporting, there is something that you can always do.
Yes.
Empathize.
There's a deep human connection, specifically with individuals, in my particular case, that have suffered various forms of trauma. Either the trauma of being in a culture, a society that doesn't accept them, or having to have been in relationships, family or otherwise, that are abusive for many different reasons, or for situations where an individual is coming in and no longer has the same support network, no longer has the same social structures, is learning an entirely different language, is learning how to adapt to a culture that may not be particularly inviting, it may not be particularly accepting. And as an attorney, you get confronted with not only the legal black letter, how do we get from point A to point B, which is the crux of the job. The job is very important to get. Client comes in, they have a particular benefit, they may be eligible for that benefit. How do we go from the theory to the reality of getting them that benefit? But what's often not discussed is all the stuff along the way, that an attorney can end up being a social support network, can be a counselor, can be somebody that provides access to resources that an individual may not know is available for many of the different reasons that I described above. And so I feel that it's very, very important, my role specifically, but also for most attorneys, to try to have some sort of level of not only empathy and understanding, but at the same time, understand that support networks and systems in place are just as equally important to get you to where you need to go, which is the point of getting residency, some sort of visa, citizenship, because how you help your client with all of those stressors, psychological, psychosocial, financial to the degree that's readily available, will help your client get to where they need to go, because immigration is just one small piece of a very large pie of what a person is encompassing when they're going on this journey. And
Absolutely.
it's a privilege as an attorney to be chosen by somebody to say, I am entrusting you with this part of my life, especially for people that have been victimized and that are completely vulnerable to being victims of abuse. It's a very, very heightened responsibility that you must take as an attorney to make sure that you are doing everything within your power to ensure that there is a foundational level of trust and that you build off of that trust. And that all of that ends up usually contributing to a positive outcome for the client in their case. And it forms really, really strong professional, but also personal bonds with your clients. And it's okay to have that. You don't learn that in law school. You learn.
That's what I was going to ask. It's like, okay, Ernie, that's great, but I don't think you get that in school.
No, no, you don't.
How can we help with this? First, we have to gain awareness, right, on the impact that what you're describing will have on the procedures that you are naturally engaged into and you want to kind of finalize and get to. You're saying, well, actually creating that bond with your client is going to help you through the process. Oh, right. I like that. But how? Right? People listening to you is like, that sounds wonderful, Ernie. But as you just said, we don't get that in law school. So do you happen to have any project or any resources that you can give those lawyers listening to you today that gets you, that may want to do the same thing that you're proposing, but have no clue on where to start?
my goal is eventually to be able to create a series of short videos to be able to guide and instruct people on how to properly communicate with clients in various states of either emotional distress or various states of communicative issues. And what I mean by that is that, especially in my field, dealing with immigration, and this happens in other fields as well. Immigration is a very emotionally charged
Yes.
area. You have different cultures that
Yes.
you're dealing with.
We had some cross-culturalists and interculturalist people interested in this session precisely because of it.
Yeah, and you need to do research first and foremost. You, as an attorney, we love being nerds, and we love researching the black letter law, and we love proving our clients right, and we love defending our clients. But in order to gain that trust with your client, you need to be able to understand, to a degree, cultural empathy. You need to be able to do research and understand why things are a certain way, why clients react in a certain way, why everyone always comes from a very Eurocentric or very US centric sort of model of this is what I need to do to be successful, but there are varying different ways. You gain that not only through research, but you gain that with practical experience in speaking with clients. You also need to understand, and lawyers have a very difficult time with this, embracing the reality that you are not the end all be all to the knowledge, that you learn as much from your clients as
They learn from
able
you.
from you. And you learn about different cultural practices, you learn about different experiences. And I really do feel specifically as a first generation American to Cuban and Colombian parents, and being raised in an environment where my family was a mix of different cultures, I have a little bit more of an ingrained personal knowledge of what it's like to grow up in a community within my community that's different. And you can play off of those strengths as well. I also think the most important thing is, again, as an attorney, you have a duty to guide clients, and ultimately they have to be the ones that make a decision. But there's no duty to just simply listen to your clients. And I think that's really, really important, is we're often so focused on where we need to go and how to get there. And we've done these things before, and they're so tried and true. But sometimes we forget to take a deep breath and listen to our clients, listen to their
Be in the
experiences.
moment and understand
Being in the moment.
the nuances, the differences, right? The nuanced differences of each scenario that may need, as you were saying before, different resources that may not be in the protocol, but that are accessible to us because we are in the place where they are coming to and they may not know about, and may make a huge difference for them if we give them access to that additional information, resource, or whatever.
And every individual is different. And
Exactly.
understand that you're not going to understand everything in the first conversation or the first
Absolutely.
consultation. The one detriment and the one benefit about the US legal immigration system as it is right now with regards to this program and what I'm discussing is that sadly it can take a very, very long time for cases to be adjudicated. But we can lament that fact, and hopefully there'll be reform in the future that'll help people be able to get their relief
When
faster
they need it.
when they need
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
But one of the benefits, I should say, to that in terms of the attorney-client relationship is if you really are able to meet with your clients and be in a position where you can build trust with them, you will end up getting more information out of their story and out of their conversation, because they'll have instilled a sense of trust in you, that they can believe in you, and that will help the case overall. Because a lot of people, for varying different reasons, it could be because they've never had a conversation with somebody about this before, where it's different than what they've been told, that it's a cultural norm. So this is how it is, and this is how it's going to be. And it's very it's very traumatizing in a different direction to hear, oh, wait, that's not okay. That's not normal. That's actually something that it's okay to feel this way, that I, that I shouldn't feel like I'm being marginalized. It's actually okay. What's marginalization? There's a lot of privilege of us being able to instill information to clients. It takes time to process that information.
Absolutely.
Also takes time to build trust. Very, very few people dive into relationships immediately and, like an open book, share all the trauma and everything that happened to you. You need time to be able to build that relationship and that rapport. And you need to be, I think the most thing is the thing that you need to do is you need to be disarming as an individual as well. It's very hard to be very, warm and opening if you're in a stuffy office and it's very sanitized, and, there's a monitor and there's a desk and there's, fluorescent lighting, and, it feels more interrogatory than anything else. And so the thing that can change in that environment is how you approach things. I always feel that listening actively, giving pause, giving space for individuals to share, knowing that you're not going to get everything that you want to hear, potentially to help on the first go, and slowly integrating and being consistent with individuals when you communicate with them, builds that level of empathy and trust, and then hopefully gets to a point where, when you've moved beyond the substantive matters, if you're able to win all the way to being successful in the case, or if you're able to have created that foundational level of support, and that foundational level of listening. I've always said that having a sense of humor and laughing at things can also go a very strong way to being disarming and allowing people to share vulnerability and feel like they can trust you as well. Because at the end of the day, all of this is about building trust.
And you're talking about this also kind of hierarchy, kind of elimination. It's like, I'm not the expert of your story. I'm here to support whatever story you want me to listen, you want me to support, and you want me to guide. But after all, this is about you. It's not about me and what I think is good for you, but rather me understanding how can I help you best. But in
Exactly.
that, I'm just hearing a lot of kind of people around me would probably come and say, yeah, great. But everything you're talking about, Ernie, takes time. And we're on the clock and we need to go. And our clients are still numbers that we need to feel at the end of the day and we need to get done with. And this is probably the feeling that unfortunately many of the people that you are supporting and that your colleagues are supporting may feel due to this lack of prioritizing, I would say, this connection to actually the benefit of both things, the client, but as you were highlighting over and over, the case.
Yep.
Building stronger cases is
Mhm.
beneficial for both the lawyer and the client. And yes, it takes more time. It takes those pause, and it takes something that you were saying that the client will get to do, which is this sharing vulnerably what they're going through. It takes vulnerability on your side too, right? Opening up.
Absolutely. You need to be able to also share, your vulnerability, in the sense of, I'm not asking, and, or should you be sharing your, personal
Personal
problems
problem.
and your personal problems, is not what I'm saying at all. But you need to be able to create an environment that allows people to feel that they can place their trust in you, and,
That you're human, that
that
you're human, right?
exactly, and that they're not a number. And I think
Exactly.
that those are the systems that have been placed, in the legal profession, in the psychological profession, in many different professions for a very, very a long time. Volume, volume, volume. We have to have this number by
Yeah.
this certain, or we failed. How? How have you failed? I rather have one person that I've worked with trust in me completely and have them open up and share all their information to be able to get them to the point where they need to be, where they're prepared to be able to answer questions with people that will treat them with a lack of empathy, or will treat them as if they were a number, as opposed to having 50 to 100 people where it's transactional, where you may not be able to get the full benefit of the story, and where you may end up losing those cases because the person never really fully trusts you to begin with. When it comes to sharing your emotions and sharing, what's happened to you, there's nothing more important than to be able to build trust and rapport. If you don't have that, then you don't have a case, in my opinion. You can get by for a while, but eventually you won't be able to actually sustain this. And yes, this can be emotionally draining for the attorney as well. It's important to practice self-care. It's important to understand what work-life balance is. It's important to make sure that you are caring for yourself, so that you can care for others as well. And it's important for you to be able to understand that sometimes you're going to meet clients that don't want to take it. They want it to be transactional, and that's fine too. But
Yes.
for the clients that are willing to be able to, understand that there's a role change that needs to happen in order for expats, in order for migrants, in order for individuals to feel a better part of their community. If you can reach people with this empathy style model, I think that it's going to be able to change dividends in terms of their lives. And at the very least, they feel a little bit more welcomed in a country that is not that is foreign to them at the beginning. And that can help psychologically a long way to feeling that they're included and they're feeling invited. And
Absolutely.
clients will go, the extra mile for you if you're willing to show them that you care.
Exactly. And what you're describing is precisely this long-term vision of it. It's like, I do not only take that case as a number that I need to finish, but I'm taking that case as a person's life, because I am having an impact on their life now, as you were mentioning from the beginning, because I am the person that can give them access to all these resources that I know about, that they don't, and that I can also be generous and offer that on top of my legal services. But if I create that trust and I create this relationship, I can gain much more information to build a bigger and stronger case that will have a better and long lasting effect in that person's life.
Exactly. It's not to be superfluous, but especially in the field that I work in, it an acceptance or denial is a life-changing event for individuals.
Absolutely.
For somebody, some vague examples, somebody who's fled, female genital mutilation or domestic violence in a culture and a society that doesn't value and appreciate their trauma, to be able to come and flee that violence and live in an entirely different culture, an entirely different society, adapt to the best that they can, maybe even to a degree assimilate to a new culture and a new society, while trying to still keep their own story, their own culture, their own roots alive within themselves, because you leave the country, but the country never leaves you.
Absolutely.
Always a part of that culture, that environment. You bring the joy, you bring the love and the passion of that. You bring the pain too, but you try to work through that. To know that you don't have to go back and to be considered different, or to be considered as a result of that difference, and other, and be punished for it, and to know that you're going to be safe, is a life-changing opportunity for individuals. For individuals that have children as well, to know that they're going to have different opportunities that they themselves couldn't have even dreamed of.
Dream of. Yeah, absolutely.
And those opportunities are going to be able to, give them a fonder appreciation, for the country in which they're growing up. That's life changing. And to know that if you meet somebody, that you're not going to be separated by that individual, that you're going to have a pathway to be able to stay and live your life. The doors that open up professionally, the doors that open up personally, emotionally, it's a heavy responsibility that we have. So my question is, why wouldn't you do everything that you can from an empathetic model to make sure that individuals feel invited from the get-go? And why wouldn't you do that to help them benefit them when they go to a situation that is going to be, very, very departmentalized and very rigid and very by the book and for lack of a better word, very, very governmental.
Yes.
And and ensuring them and reinforcing them that they understand their story, they can share their story. That's another area, is positive reinforcement, giving them reinforcement that that despite their trauma, they're strong, they're powerful individuals, that they have an opportunity to share their strength, to share their power. It's not it's that's something that can't be done by a very transactional, you pay me money, or in my case, since we're a nonprofit, you sign a retainer for no fees, and we'll get you to this, right? That's completely different than constantly reinforcing individuals that they have a story to tell and they have a safe space with which to be able to do it. You invite that opportunity, you invite that open space, you invite that chance for people to listen to you. And not only will it help in your profession, the most important thing is that it'll help those people in their lives.
Forever, because you're seeing that person as a whole. And you were mentioning that beautifully. You're seeing them for, yes, the transaction that you may have been paid for or contracted for, but they are much more than that. And many times, especially lawyers or psychologists, we may be seeing the dark side of the coin, or those problems that are bringing them to therapy, to lawyers, and so on and so forth. But there's so much more. They're so much more than the trauma, the experience of migration, the experience of abuse, and so on and so forth. They are so much more. And we all have this responsibility to make sure that they are seen for that, that they're not only seen as victims or people that need support, but also that as people that have resources, that have a culture, that they have the right to even hold on certain part of it if that's what they want. Even if, as you were talking about, mutilation, for instance, there may be part of it that have been horrendously painful for you, but you have still the right to hold on other aspects of that culture that
Exactly.
you feel are part of who you are, and not having to completely deny parts of your identity.
You are more than just your trauma. Even
Absolutely.
though in immigration we focus, especially the
Yes.
cases that I work on, the humanitarian cases, you focus on the trauma. There's often a really, dark joke about in the immigration
Oh,
field is the worst story is often the best story in terms of the immigration benefit. If you have a horrible life that's happened to you, then you more likely than not will have a better opportunity to get relief, get your case approved. Um, what I mean by that is that that's just one piece of it. There's so much more. And that also applies to expats as well. That, I know I'm talking primarily about the field that I am,
you
I,
work
I
mostly
do
with,
day in
yeah.
and day out, but that also applies to expats as well.
Absolutely.
Expats are looking, they may have various degrees of technical or, educational prowess. They may be invited by a company to work somewhere else. They have to adapt to a culture as well.
As well.
They have to adapt to a work culture. They have to adapt to an environment that may be tired or may be resistant to them coming in and, quote unquote, taking away a job or, being not culturally aligned with the values of the particular country. They face a lot of discrimination as well. And there's also a privilege aspect to it as well. And there's also, and one has to also take into consideration as well that there is a level of privilege as well that comes with being an expat too, especially if you're, traveling to a country and you have a salary base that's different. And so you can afford more, and that could potentially cause local prices to rise for individuals as well. You have a responsibility as a digital nomad or as an expat as well to understand that, you, as much as you want to bring your cultural, expertise and skills and your talents and abilities, you also have to be mindful and respectful of the country in which you are also living in as well. There's a balance to that. But I say all of that to say that there's value on both ends. There's so much value that can be derived by both. And so not having that is way worse than being able to figure out the nuances of bringing both of those experiences in and merging it together, because you get the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
And there is a part about expats and all these privileged migrations, right? That are still seen as, oh, well, those cases that bring a lot of money, but they have the money and so on and so forth, that do not consider the emotional toll that those people are paying
Mhm.
for those movement and those opportunities. There are opportunity losses as well, and we keep
Absolutely.
talking about all the privilege, and we tend to see all these facilities, or I don't know, like maybe ways to sneak in the system and fail and so on and so forth, right? But that at the same time are coming with a lot of stress, a lot of opportunity losses that come from the very basic of having quality time with their family. That's one of the opportunity losses that those people face. And
Absolutely.
we need to gain awareness that even those that may look like having it all sorted out are also people that even in legal procedures could benefit from that space that you were describing of empathy and support and listening to the whole story, right?
We live in a society where we want to believe that there is only one truth and everything
Yeah.
else must be incorrect. Both things can be true. You can be in a position where you are advantaged in one country, but at the same time suffer disadvantages as well, and the loss of not being able to be in particular environments with your family, with your friends, as you mentioned, as succinctly and eloquently, is a loss
Yeah.
as well. You can have both, and every story, every migrant, every expat story is completely different.
Absolutely.
It's not, it's a subjectivity. You can't overgeneralize and
No.
just assume that this person from this means this.
Yeah.
If we start doing that, which we are, but if we continue to do that, yeah, I shouldn't say start. If we continue to do that, all it leads to is more polarization. And
Yeah.
all it leads to is these sweeping generalizations of why people are doing things in general. The empathy that not only I give to my clients and give to them when I'm trying to represent them, in their particular case, is something that can be taken out of the courtroom, taken out of the classroom, and placed into real life. We need to be able to slow down,
Yeah.
practice more civility, really take a deep breath and a deep dive, and practice more empathy with one another. It goes beyond the profession. It goes on into personal life. It goes on into personal relationships. It goes with people that you meet. Um, you don't know everything that's going on inside somebody. And you don't know what decisions drove them to do what they needed to do. Um, we assume certain things, but we truly don't know unless we have an opportunity to talk and get to know that person. And that's why I feel like in every relationship, every aspect, professional, personal, communication is the most important thing. And so if you're able to establish good lines of communication with individuals, it will help you professionally and personally, and it'll help you um, understand as well. And if you can understand, you may be able to empathize. And if you can empathize, you then may be able to change your mindset and your perspectives on maybe one thing that you thought was one way, and now it's something completely different. And it's okay to change. Everyone always thinks
Exactly.
that we have to be stuck in a
Let's embrace change.
change. Exactly.
Let's
Exactly.
embrace change. I think this is a beautiful note to close this little interview session. I think it was a beautiful discussion on this need to precisely gain awareness of the power we have on any position. I love the fact that you just pointed out that professors can do that, psychologists we can do that, lawyers can do that, and this is what you were bringing into, right, to try to raise that awareness among your community, and that it is something that takes time. It takes courage and curiosity, a lot of cultural sensitivity as well. And I can
Yeah.
only thank you for that, because I think that was beautiful. And I hope that the community and people that are listening to this recording found it as useful as I found it the first time I talked to Ernie and I invited him to this session. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I do want to say one thing too to the rest
Sure,
of the community out there. And I think this is probably one of the most important lessons. So I'm sorry that I
sure.
speaking this in at the last second, but it's okay to fail.
Hmm.
I think everyone always expects to be the most, everyone always strives for success. And I think that's very, very important. But um, am I am I somebody that actively listens all the time? No, of course not. I strive to do it. And it's okay. If you fail at something, learn from those failures. You learn more by failing than you do by succeeding. And so if this isn't easy for you, if this is difficult for you to be able to incorporate in your life or in your practice, it's okay. Acknowledge it. But understand that if you practice, just like with anything else, over time, looking at things from an empathetic lens and being able to incorporate communication and listening from an empathy perspective, you will be able to be more successful at it than not. But don't be surprised if it doesn't come naturally at first. It takes time, but it's okay to fail. I'm
And
giving you permission to fail.
thank
Uh,
you. And I like to see failure as children do. Why does a child that falls that not stop trying? Because they have a community around them that keeps encouraging them to continue trying. So I hope Ernie and myself and many others that are to come can become that community that encourage people to not be afraid of keep trying and keep moving toward changes as the one Ernie has suggested here. Thank you so much.
you're welcome, Karina. Thank you.